Hey FCF, we're getting ready to complete this week out. We're in 1 Peter chapter 5. We're coming near the end of our journey, and we're going to be in verses 5 through 7. Peter says to us, he says, "Young men, in the same way, be submissive to those who are older. All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." Verse 6, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you." So Peter is turning a corner now, and he wants to talk to younger followers of Christ and to try to help them adjust to how they relate to those that are more mature in Christ. And he says that they are to humble themselves, the younger men, and be submissive to those who are older. Now, he doesn't just mean in age, chronological, but he means in spiritual maturity too. This might seem to be an obvious thing, but when you're younger, sometimes you're a bit more likely to be full of yourself. You're young and fast, and you feel indestructive, and like you know it all. It's not an unusual thing to go through a know-it-all period. So Peter is saying, in the Christian community, that should not be so. So he tells these young men, and of course it would be young women too, to be sure to walk humbly with those that are older, more mature. But then he says all. Now this includes those that are older in the way they interact with the younger. "All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another." And then he gives a reason, because God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So here he says, in the church of Christ, humility ought to be normative. Whether you're younger, whether you're older, whether you're a new Christian, whether you've been a Christian for decades, we should treat one another with humility. And what I said in a message recently is that humility is sanity. You're just seeing things the way they are. You're seeing God as he is. You're seeing yourself as you are. You're seeing others as they are. They are just as valuable to God as we are to ourselves. And so we are treating one another with the kind of care and with the viewpoint that God has. Then it says that God opposes the proud. Of course God opposes the proud, because pride is insanity. It's living as though you have a superior value that will lead to all kinds of entitlement, all kinds of mistreatment of others, and so on. So God has to oppose that. He can't feed into it, but he gives grace to the humble. When we stay humble, when we stay teachable, God can work tremendously very powerfully in our lives. Now then he goes on to say this. He says in verse 6, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time." Now notice, God always wants to expand our influence. He wants to lift us up, but he can't lift us up until our character is sufficiently developed to carry the weight of the influence. If we're puffed up with pride and we're given a large influence, it will end up destroying us sooner or later. We will self-destruct, and we'll bring a lot of other people down with us. So God says, if we humble ourselves, then God can. He may lift us up. He wants to lift us up. He wants to expand our influence, but he has to wait until our character is safe. And it's only when we're humble that our character is safe to carry the weight of influence and all that it brings. Verse 7 seems to be discordant with these first two verses, but it really isn't. He says, "Cast all your anxiety or worry on him, because he cares for you." Now he's been talking loosely about sufferings. He's been talking loosely about interaction within the Church of Christ, how that the elders and leaders are supposed to humbly be models and lead the others. He's talking about younger ought to be those that are humble and respectful to those that are older in the Lord with them. And so now he's saying this might cause some tension. It might cause some anxiety. It might cause some worry between the exterior pressures of suffering, the interior challenges of rightly relating in this new Christian way. So he says, take your anxieties not to someone else, although that can help at times too, but he says take them to the Lord. Pour them out before him. Let God know what you're feeling. You might be thinking, well, he already knows what I'm feeling, Randy. Yeah, but God knows that something happens when we tell him, when we hear ourselves telling him what we're feeling. Trust me on this one. It changes things, and mostly it changes us. So we're to take our anxieties, cast it on the Lord, and it says that he will sustain us. And probably most of us that are on this broadcast have had enough experience in that particular way, and we'll have to continue to do this right until the end of our lives. I hope you're not going through any anxiety today, but if you are, it says cast on the Lord. He'll sustain you. Thank you.